finally felt that we had our dream house. But what I'd really bought was a gateway to the paranormal.
When I was 12, my family moved to a brand new house.
Is this something paranormal that is trying to intimidate, trying to scare these two children?
I knew I was in danger.
The fact that you have pieces of furniture that are being flung in the air, very aggressively trying to provoke or inflict pain.
When I review a case, I always look at the credibility of the witness.
I'm laying down in bed and just feel it was just staring at me. I didn't know what he said, I didn't hear the word, but it scared me.
Something's not right here.
A lot of people felt unsafe.
This is my daughter. You don't tell me to stay away.
What the hell does it want?
In the afterlife, he is quite probably trying to seek revenge for what they had done.
When I was looking for a house, I wanted something in the country with a bit of land. So when I saw this house, I fell in love with it.
Aaron Goodpipe, take one. Mark.
As an investigator going into a case like Laurie Kinraid's, you want to establish a few things. Can we first rule out non-paranormal occurrences happening? The second is, if there are a number of things occurring that seem paranormal, we want to figure out what that motive is and who is doing it.
We had been married for 7 years, and we found this home that we fell in love with, and the price was right. I saw it as a fresh start for us and a safe place to raise Brianne. I finally felt that we had our dream house. But what I'd really bought was a gateway to the paranormal. My husband and I met when I moved to the city for college. We ended up in the same rooming house. Everything seemed wonderful. At first, our bond just grew inseparable, and we became a couple pretty quickly. With my husband, when things were good, there was a lot of laughter, a lot of fun. But when things were bad, they were extremely bad. He could just go off at the flip of a switch. We used to always say you'd have to look in his eyes to see who was there. All I could hope was moving to this new house would change Freddie somehow, and we needed that. I kept hoping for the best, but often getting the worst. It started from the very beginning, on moving in day.
I was 2.5 years old when we moved into this house. I remember things being less than great between my parents from a very young age. At his worst, my dad was scary. I just remember being very scared of him when I was little.
What the freaking man?
It was extreme anger. And the thing is, he could be sitting beside you and talking 1 minute, and everything was fine.
You hear me? I'm talking to you. You hear what I said? You pathetic woman.
Partly I was hoping that maybe having our own place, that might help, but it didn't change anything. And then he just seemed to get more obsessive. I knew something wasn't right.
When I was growing up in this house, I heard a lot of strange voices.
It was right about here. I heard women's voices chattering away. And there was no one there.
Based on the transcripts of Lori's testimony, there are a number of strange occurrences that are happening in the house since they've moved in, and it's having an immediate effect on the people living in the house, specifically Lori's husband.
I remember when my dad would get into his moods, his eyes would just go dark and blank, and it was scary.
I started becoming aware pretty early on that there was something that wasn't right. We weren't allowed to close doors. He would start out by saying, oh, we had to take the door off to refinish it. But then the doors never went back on.
My dad was very paranoid. He had some idea that we were doing something behind his back.
He just had this obsession that if you were behind the door, he didn't know what you were doing. There was no sense to any of it. Frankly, I just hit a point I would have rather dealt with anything paranormal than with my husband.
You're pathetic.
He had his moments being totally out of control. The house would definitely become way more active. So his instability was just adding to the fire.
There was definitely a correlation between how intense my dad's moods were and how intense the hauntings would become.
When you have energy that's really negative, perhaps you're very angry, then you might find resonance with an angry spirit that might be there with that type of energy, so they can kind of coalesce together.
There was always one area of the house that was more active, and it was on all 3 floors. And it was that corner over there. I would hear noises, things bumping, banging. It was very unnerving to hear it, especially when you can't find the cause. That's when it became clear that this house, my dream house, was haunted.
The first bedroom that my parents put me in when I was very little was the worst. It was very scary. This was my room when I was really little, where all of the really scary activity happened at the beginning. It was terrifying. I would hear footsteps moving around the bed. And just being so scared, I was just shaking, and I was too afraid to move, too afraid to blink or breathe.
But there was nothing. I don't believe in telling a child you dreamt it or whatever, but I did get a weird feeling something's not right here.
From my perspective, children, they've just come from the spirit realm and they're aging through. But because of that, they are so sensitive to the spirit realm that exists around them. I tend to believe that what children are experiencing is real.
I needed to understand what was going on. So I decided to go to the town archives to see what we could find out. We went through the archives and found out that the house was built in approximately 1856. As we learned in the neighborhood, it seemed like every family in the area had some connection to our home. You know, and they'd been there for funerals, they'd been there for weddings.
When you have events that are really emotionally charged, that can imprint on a space. For example, if you have a wedding somewhere and you're a spirit, that might be a place that you want to go and revisit. It's a special place for you. Likewise, if a funeral happened there, you might have grief that's really associated in that space for a spirit who also might be going back there for those familiar memories. My question around that then is, well, who is that? Who is tied to this space specifically?
I heard a noise upstairs, and then I heard a voice.
She come up here. No, wait. No. I think they want one now.
It was right up there, the top of the stairs. That's where I saw her. She made it very clear she didn't want me to come up. It's such a surreal feeling when you see something like this.
Don't come.
Everything just goes on hold. The message that I heard in my head was, "Don't come up." It was like she was territorial, angry but almost threatening. She wanted me to know, I'm here. I got angry. It's like, no way. Like, this is my child. This is my daughter. You don't tell me to stay away. And I just stormed right up and went through where she'd been standing, and, you know, that mama bear thing comes out, right?
As a child, it could be very scary to have this entity around. You never really knew when she was going to pop up. And it felt like she was always here. She was always part of the fabric of the house.
Lori mentions that she was speaking with her neighbor, and they came across a photograph where there was a woman in the photograph that Lori recognized. It was the woman that she had been encountering in her home.
I was able to identify who she was, the past owner of my house. It was her ghost that I saw at the top of the stairs.
This is really crucial because the past owner might be inhabiting the house still as if she's living in the home. So when you get people who move into your space, it can feel very intrusive. You can feel like, okay, who are these strangers in my home? I need to get them out.
My mom did her best to reassure me that she wasn't there to hurt me and she wasn't going to cause me any harm, but that my mom would do what she needed to do to make sure that she would take care of it.
I knew I had to get rid of the spirit once and for all. I did my research and I came across an ancient method. I visualized her going up and taken to where she needed to go to do her healing. The crossing was successful, and I believe that she found peace, and we found peace as well, for a while.
I'm so relieved that it worked out for Lori, that this ceremony helped them be rid of the spirit. There's a sense of harmony in the space, spiritually that is. Now I think it's time for Lori to reconsider the abuse that's coming from her husband.
I would try to talk to him calmly about how neither of us was happy and we needed to start working on our lives separately.
I remember he would just grab armloads of our things and just take them outside and set them on fire.
Fire was his thing. I always kind of figured that's the way we would both go out, that we would both go out in fire. It was definitely hell, and my health was going downhill.
One day when he was at work, we took the dogs and we left. It ended up being part of the agreement that my mom would get this house. And so a few months after we had left, my dad agreed to move out so that my mom and I could move back in.
We lived a relatively quiet life until I got an email one day saying that Freddie was in the hospital and not expected to live. Did we want to say our goodbyes? We both went down that night, but it was absolutely terrifying. We couldn't get over the feeling that, like a monster, he was gonna open his eyes and jump out of the bed. But we said our goodbyes and said, we're sending you off with no hate. You have to go and deal with your demons. Go and love a night. It was about a week later, they'd taken him off life support.
This is where this complex case of Lori Kinraid's takes a terrifying turn.
It's gonna take longer than I thought.
It was the angry stomping. It was that energy and that feeling like somebody wants to get right in your face. It was familiar to the way he would be stomping around when he was getting ready to trash the place. That's when I realized that what was haunting us now was Freddie, and he was back with a vengeance. To be targeted by my late abusive husband was a whole different level of terror.
Lori's late husband, Freddie, is probably enraged that Lori and her daughter escaped from him in life. And now, in the afterlife, he is quite probably trying to seek revenge for what they had done.
He really blamed me for his words breaking up the family. He did tell me that he would kill me. A lot of ways this makes sense, that even in death he couldn't let go. I was upstairs one night and I sort of got into a purge mode. That was terrifying.
This is really dangerous at this point. The fact that you have pieces of furniture that are being flung in the air says that this is really physical, that this spirit is really powerful and is perhaps, very aggressively trying to provoke or inflict pain.
There was nothing else or no one else that was capable of doing that kind of violence, and it was too similar to what he did when he was living.
After my dad died, I brought the ashes back to this house. There was really nowhere else to keep them, so we kept them here. But my mom and I had always felt uncomfortable around the ashes. It always felt a little uneasy. The activity in the house had gotten so out of hand, and things were happening more and more often around there, and she was getting more and more concerned. So she messaged me and said, "We need to get these ashes out of here right now."
I just felt the negative energy. I had to get rid of it. Found a spot in Lake Huron, and I said another goodbye to him and released him.
I believe what Lori and Brianne did was a way of getting closure. By putting those ashes into the lake, they're essentially saying to the spirit world, to Freddie himself, that you have no power here, you're not a part of this home. They're essentially breaking spiritual bonds between the spirit realm, between Freddie and the presence of him in their lives.
I can't really explain the revenge other than the fact that I was still living. He was still angry because I did leave. I got away from him. We both did. It's my first time to ever talk about this. Nobody in my family ever knew any of this was going on. His life was all about secrets, never telling, never letting anybody see, never letting anybody in, and letting it be known. There's no more secrets anymore. We escaped. The long and the short of it, right? We escaped.
When I was 12, my family moved to a brand new house in the Menifee area, just south of LA. At the time, it was a new development. It wasn't even a city yet. It was kind of in the middle of nowhere. But I was happy because I liked the peace and quiet. And it was easy to make new friends. One day, all the peace just went away. My father, he worked as a police officer. His job put him in conflict with the most dangerous criminals in the country. My dad felt like because of his line of work, it was not safe for us as a family to be out in public. So what any other family could normally do was just sit down at a regular fast food restaurant. We had to drive out of our town to do that. And you think a normal childhood is having to sit down at a fast food restaurant 20 minutes away from home. You think that's normal. And you find out why. You find out that there's bad people hiding in places like this. My dad was a target because of his job. He never told us anything. He wanted to keep that out of the house. He wanted to make sure we were safe. But, you know, you're kids, you're curious. You want to know what he does. I wish I wasn't so curious.
Richard, take one. Mark.
At first glance, Clyde Morrison's case didn't look like a particularly compelling case. And then I began to delve a little bit deeper and found that there was more to this than met the eye.
I have seen many cases, and this is not your average haunting.
One night, my parents were away, and I was playing a game with my younger brother. We're not normally alone. My family had to go do a family emergency out of the state. We were gonna take advantage of that and play games all night, eat all the food we weren't supposed to be eating, all the things that they told us not to do.
8. Okay.
It sounded like an adult. Oh man. I didn't know what he said, I didn't hear the word, but it scared me. It sounded like someone trying to scare us. Someone shouting like, hey, something to get your attention. And it did, it got all of our attention.
Clyde and his brother are quite young at this point, and so there could be all sorts of things. You're home alone as a kid, you know, every little bump, every little sound can be scary and can be emphasized. We tend to read into a lot of things when we're children.
I literally thought someone had broken in. I knew I was in danger right then and there. The only people in that house was myself, my younger brother Malcolm. That was it.
When doing a paranormal investigation, you have to begin by looking at the facts and ruling out the real life things that are surrounding an occurrence. He lives in a neighborhood where there's a lot of crime that's happening. So there is a lot of circumstance that could come into play here.
Clyde's dad works for the gang unit. He deals with some very bad individuals. He arrests them, he puts them in prison. So we have to look at the possibility that we are dealing with a violent, vindictive, flesh and blood, possibly homicidal individual who wants to hurt a cop and his kids.
When I looked, I saw nothing. I just felt something.
There's no one there.
I was terrified that somebody was there and I knew I wasn't gonna be able to protect myself. It sounded like someone slammed it shut, as if they were upset.
Clyde's account has taken a turn from kids getting spooked all the way to something physical like big, heavy indoor shutters slamming.
The shutter slammed. We stopped immediately what we were doing, wondering what the hell just happened, since no one was even next to it.
It takes a great deal of physical force to slam shutters. It takes a lot of energy to make that happen. Is this something paranormal that is trying to intimidate, trying to scare these two children who it knows are home alone?
I ran outside to get our neighbor. We were left in the care of our next door neighbor to watch out for us. We were praying, please just be home. Menifee, because it is a new city, It was right smack in the middle of some pretty known danger cities. Bad people started going in our neighborhoods and breaking into vehicles, breaking into homes, and stealing. And a lot of people felt unsafe and unsure if it's gonna keep happening.
There's a valid concern that one of the people that Clyde's father has arrested, or one of their family members, has found out where they live and has targeted him.
As soon as we told our neighbor that somebody's in our house, he didn't question us. He immediately told us to stay put. He went back into his house to grab his shotgun, and he went to our house. He had searched upstairs and downstairs, and even in the backyard, and even in the garage. And he let us know that there was nobody in our house, and that maybe we were just tired and probably just hearing things. We knew we heard somebody.
It's possible that Clyde and his brother have been the victims of a break-in, but nothing was taken, nobody was harmed, no intruder was seen, and they left the house without leaving any sign of having been there at all. That leads me to believe that this is not a living person at all. We're dealing with something paranormal.
So after the days go by and I realized, okay, the house is fine. There's nobody here. I'm safe again. It sounded like heavy footsteps on the shingles above where I slept. It was somebody on the roof walking around. And I froze. My dad was not even home yet. To hear a loud footstep above where I slept, it terrified me. My dad came home, immediately a wall of this sour smell hit. It was just this disgusting, strong odor that came off of my dad. He had come back from the morgue. He didn't look at us in the eyes, he kind of looked down. And we didn't know what was going on. The stuff that he had to have seen at his job should never have happened. He's seen women getting hurt, kids getting hurt. He's seen countless gang members killing each other. He tried to make it a habit. When he would come home, have a smile on his face to show us that the day didn't affect him. But we could tell that he had a rough day at work.
The fact that Clyde's father works in such a high stress, high traumatic profession that carries a lot of emotional baggage would have a profound effect on not only Clyde's father, but the whole entire family.
Could it be the stresses and strains that Clyde's father is dealing with as a police officer? Could the emotions, the negative feelings that he experiences because of that be drawing something in, something that wants to feed on those negative emotions?
I told my mom about the footsteps. She thought that I was being dramatic. She told me that I need to stop watching scary movies. That I was just scaring myself and there was nothing going on. And I told her, well, I didn't feel safe.
But as matters escalate, they follow less real-world logic, and it becomes apparent that Clyde's dealing with something much more frightening.
Children are very close and vulnerable to the spirit realm that's around them. And so the fact that Clyde is feeling this, he's feeling a presence in his room, in his spaces, that we need to trust what he's saying.
Before we moved into this house, we got lucky enough to be able to watch it being made. And we were taken there countless times from where it was just piles of dirt everywhere. And my mother, she told us that the whole area was burial ground. Our whole street.
According to Clyde's mother, their subdivision is actually right on top of sacred indigenous burial grounds, which is huge. Clyde brings up a very interesting possibility. Merino Valley has been inhabited for thousands of years by the Pechanga people. It's very important for people to understand that indigenous burial grounds are sacred. They're like any other cemetery where people are laying to rest. Can you imagine building a home on somebody's family's remains? Absolutely not. So I can imagine that if their home is on top of a burial ground, that those spirits could potentially be feeling disrespected and could be angry.
I couldn't shake the thought that somebody was just waiting. I started thinking maybe it had something to do with the burial ground where my house is built. That alone terrified me. I imagined tons of spirits everywhere, outside, inside the house. And I was afraid.
If it was an indigenous burial ground, you would think that these spirits would potentially be bothering the whole family, but it specifically targeted Clyde. So this leads me to believe that it is something a little more personal.
I started feeling like somebody was staring at me. The hair on my entire body stood up. And I was scared out of my mind. It wanted to harm me, and it was gonna do whatever it could to do that. I'm laying down in bed. In the corner, something was just standing there. I can only see the silhouette of it, but I can just feel it was just staring at me. And it terrified the hell out of me. I mean, there's being scared, and then there's the next level up where you're just shaking with fear. Came back over and over again. What is this? Where did it come from? What the hell does it want?
The strange phenomena that's plaguing Clyde started on the periphery, But as he goes through these experiences night after night, it is closing in on him like a hunter closes in on its prey.
I would always try and see what its face looked like. And it made sure it had nothing for me to be able to describe it to anyone.
When an apparition manifests visually, its appearance can sometimes tell us about the way in which it died, or some key piece of information about the haunting itself.
Once I realized I couldn't see its face, I remember thinking back on the camera. My dad had a camera to document certain things that he was going to testify in court. And I got curious one day. I hit this library button on the camera to see the last picture I was taking on the camera. And it was just horrible. This person had killed himself with a shotgun. I immediately connected the dots. My dad was going to arrest this person, and I believe he blamed my father for having to kill himself. So now, he was looking for revenge.
We gathered the data, we've analyzed the evidence, and one conclusion stands out from all the others: that this victim felt that he was cornered. Being arrested by Clyde's father pushed him into taking his own life. He lost his entire world, and now I think he wants to inflict some degree of loss on Clyde's father. He's not targeting the police officer himself, he's targeting the thing that he cares for most in all the world, his son.
Who is vulnerable and impressionable as a young person. It just makes for a perfect revenge story.
This thing haunted me from the time I was 13 until I was 18. And that's when I moved out of the house. And I never saw it again. To this day, I am still afraid of the dark. I've learned that there's a lot more to life, and there's a lot more to death that we don't understand. Just because they were bad when they were alive doesn't mean they'll be good when they're dead. Sometimes they stay bad.